Hey, everybody. It's good to see you all. And, I'm waiting for Sam, and Sam is in another country. So, the time things are always, um, time zones can be tricky. So, nevertheless, maybe he'll come today and maybe he'll join us for another day. So, I just wanted to jump on and say hello. So, welcome back again to Uncaged Leaders. I'm Mariquita Solis, the Uncaged Heart Coach. Let me know if you're watching and if these videos resonate with you. Um, so the reason I'm doing this series is for that successful man that has everything, the house, the car, everything, the money, the bank account, the stocks, everything, right? All that they could want, but they feel flat and dead inside. So this show is dedicated to them. It's for a sense of purpose. To find what's missing in their soul, what's going on, right? Oh, so I was like that. So, I mean, I had a flat, dead life. Nothing inspired me. There was nothing really, right? That was, I felt empty inside, hollow, and I was struggling to have everything from the outside. So why would I be coaching men? So I studied at the Institute for Women-Centered Coaching Training and Leadership. I also worked in his residential treatment center with little boys. I was a residential treatment coordinator. These little boys from age 5 to about 10. And I witnessed the shutting down of their emotions, their struggle with self-regulation, and of being tough, being this posturing, this not being able to cry and to be like a man even at such a tender age. They knew that they had to be tough and that they had to be stoic, and that was something that was required of them in society. So that gives me the insight. That gave me the insight now looking back, and at the time of when they started to build this armor around their hearts, and the armor around their heart, which did there was a reason they built it at that time, right? To survive in the world as a little boy, not to be made fun of. But is it surviving? I mean, is it helping you today as an older man? That's the question, because that's that armor, that same armor that might have worked in certain situations back then, is keeping you from the relationship that you deserve today. So I'm an empath. I'm very sensitive, and I will say I'm very soft. And I don't say that lightly. I'm proud to say it, but I'm also very strong. I'm a leader at my church. I'm in many capacities and in other roles as well. And I don't back down. I'm here to use my voice. So I'm very soft, and I'm very empathetic and very sensitive, highly sensitive, but very strong. And I'm a leader. And yeah, I take that role seriously. So, so that is a little bit about me and who I am today. And I still don't see Sam, but that's okay. We'll just have a conversation, me and y'all. So let me know if you're watching on the replay or you're watching now. So let me just tell you a little bit about my story. I really didn't understand anything about relationships or life as a young woman. And I can give you the insight if anybody who wants to know more answers, what it's like to be a woman. Then, in relationships, I can let you know. So I struggled in relationships for my whole life. I didn't have any self-confidence, despite the fact that I played tennis and competitively, and I excelled in that. It didn't translate into self-confidence in the dating realm. It was wonderful in other ways of the steadfast resilience, but not in the ways of relationships. So I always would. I was very sensitive again, and I am very sensitive. But I was a giver, and I'm a giver now. Now I am very cognizant of who I give to. So back then, I was not cognizant of who I gave to, and I overgave and overgave and overgave. So, um, that led to many, many years and years and years of failed relationship after failed relationship, over and over, jumping through hoops and seeing myself um, as a material item, that I was something that I needed, that a material object to sell, right? I needed to sell myself because I needed to be chosen by a man to be loved. Now, was I good enough? What did I have to do to be chosen by a man that was successful? That, I mean, now I'm defining by the standards of society, right? I used to look for men the way that they looked for me, in the asset role, not in a role of soul connection. It was more of like, what can this man bring to me to make me feel worthy? And vice versa. I like, what would I bring to this man to show his world that he is an accomplished man, right? Like, here I am standing next to him. Now, what do I bring to his world? Oh, wow, you've got a great looking piece of whatever material right next to you, right? An asset, right? Not a real human being. And I was judged over and over on looks, body. What do I have? Do I have this? I mean, what do I have financially? What do I have? What can I bring as an asset to the relationship, instead of what is my core being and where's the connection there? So I wasn't connecting on a level that would sustain a relationship. And that was very evident, because relationship after relationship fell apart because they were not based on anything of foundation. They were based on material and superficial connection. So, and hobbies, which is nice, having nice similar hobbies is good. And, it's important to be able to go hang out with your partner and enjoy the same things. But usually if you have the same values and the same core beliefs, then your hobbies will tend to lead in that same direction as well. So that's where I got off course. I never really was on course. And so it was years and years of jumping through hoops, pretending to be who I was not for men. And just, I didn't know who I was because I was changing every minute for different men. So finally, I came to my breaking point after being, I was dumped, you could say. And then I realized the reason I was dumped was because, well, who knows why? I wasn't good enough, I guess. I wasn't good enough in this person's eyes. And this person had said, wow, you're so amazing. What's wrong with you? And so I lived in fear that that person would know what was wrong with me. That, please, dear God, don't let him find out what's wrong with me. And then I started making the list, like all the things that's wrong with me. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And then I would be trying to hide them all the time. And yeah, you can't just pretend and hide, or you can't hide who you are. That's what I was doing, twisting myself and pretending to be someone I wasn't. And that's going to fall apart. So nevertheless, after it did fall apart, then I began to persecute myself after he was gone, and just continue on the battle of what's wrong with you. Okay, well, he left you because there are these things wrong with you. Now you have to again dwell on these things. And instead of really looking past that, just beat yourself up even more. Maybe if you can just beat yourself up long enough, then you'll finally be worthy, right? You'll finally be okay if you just base yourself in hatred. But that doesn't work. So I'm here to tell you, if you're doing that, all that does is just build an armor against yourself, an armor against, a battle against your own heart. And it doesn't work. And I finally came to the point on my bed, just thinking, what is going to happen? I don't know how to love myself. I don't know how to feel anything compassionate towards myself. So I got the book Self-Compassion. And that was by Kristen Neff. And that was a turning point for me because I had no other option. I couldn't go on with the self-hatred. Thankfully, I was a master at it. And I pulverized myself until that was it. I couldn't go on any longer. So I got the book and I started watching Oprah Soul Sundays. You know, whether you like Oprah or not, there was a lot of good guests on there that helped me connect to my inner being. And I remember reading a book actually at that time, also laying on my bed, and I was reading every night and getting books and reading Rob Bell, Love Wins, and all these Eckhart Tolle, all these books I was reading. And somewhere I saw the sentence, why are you doing to yourself what he did to you, or what they did to you? And I thought, yes, that's exactly what I've been doing, is taking on the role of persecutor. What society says, you're not enough. Now I've taken on that behavior of being the abuser. And that's what I did. So nevertheless, I was able to slowly, inch by inch, watching and reading and reprogramming my mind with new thoughts, new thought patterns, and being gentle with myself. And when I saw a negative thought come in, I would shift and I would say, is that really true? And I would acknowledge that everyone has these negative thoughts and it's part of the human experience. But I started to question my own thoughts. I became self aware. One thing also that I did was put up all the sticky notes of all the compliments that I had ever received in my life, and I plastered them all over the walls to help regain some sort of self-esteem, some sort of value of myself in my life beyond the fact that, whatever. I mean, people say, oh, I love your dimples. Besides the fact that I had dimples, right? My dimples, they are not going to buy me anything. That's just, anyway. So I'm talking about something inside my soul, not my physical characteristics. So yeah, so I put up all those compliments and I would read them all the time. And I began to actually start believing them because I was reprogramming my brain, because every thought creates a pattern in your brain. So if you are thinking, gosh, you're so fat, look at how fat you are, look at your thighs, or look at this, right? And you just think that over and over and over, you're just creating this great giant, like a ditch. And then when you're walking by and then you look in the mirror, oh, you fell into the ditch again. Look at how fat or how awful I am. And so it's so important to create new thought patterns, because again, those are physical patterns. Every thought is a physical pattern in your brain. So the more that I was reading those sticky notes about um, how how divine I was, how wonderful I was, the more it made a difference in my life, and I created new patterns. So when I got to the fork in the road, I wouldn't fall into the ditch of self-hatred, but now I built a new pattern and I could choose to go this way, which would be the self-love pattern. Now this takes time and it wasn't a linear sequence. So I recommend that you all get help, whether from me as a coach or someone else, if you're falling into this pattern of self-hatred. There is no more time to waste in your life. Let me just tell you, I wasted decades hating myself, decades being like a corporate marshal, is that the right word, to myself, and being the persecutor and of my own prison. And I escaped that prison. And so that's why I do what I do. I worked many years working with women and vegans to help them overcome their limiting beliefs. And now I've shifted to men because it fell into my lap from all sorts of places. And that's the way the universe is. I had a kind of a life change. And after that life change, it was time to shift. And then I didn't have to ask where, because it fell right in front of me. So the universe is always watching and always bringing new gifts. So when you look out for them, receive them. Don't fight. Don't fight the universe, because you don't ever know what's behind the gifts. So anyway, well, I'm still not seeing Sam here, but I wanted to just talk about that. And so now, as I've shifted to coaching men, I think it's something that is so needed in our society. And this started because, well, one of the reasons was hate talk that I heard against men. This was something that really affected me, hearing such hatred towards men. And I used to hear it in small doses, like they're no good men, oh, men are all jerks, men are all cheaters, men this and that, and blah, 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 which makes me sick to hear because I don't believe that. And and I just never believed that all men were jerks or all men were liars or cheaters or once a liar, always a liar. No, I never believed that. And there is redemption for everyone. Everyone can be, everyone can grow. So um, I don't even know, what was I saying? So yeah, I shifted to coaching men to help to be a defender of men, an advocate for men, because of what I saw society doing to them, and the way that they've been trained to shut down. You've been trained to shut down your feelings, and not to allow to be expressive. I mean, as a woman, and that breaks my heart as an empath, but women have to deal with their own issues of trying to be skinny and pretty and delicate and strong and in a certain way and independent, they say. And then men have to be independent and stoic and good providers and never cry, you know um job first, everything like that. So, and there's Sam. Hey, Sam. Here we come and get him on here. Hey, Sam.
There we go. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I'm rambling on to everyone watching.
I'm doing good. Apologies for this. I'm in El Salvador, and the connection is a little bit shaky, but I found a place where it seemed to be fiber optic, so I think we'll be good.
Okay, great. All right. Well, let me. Why don't you just tell everybody about yourself?
Yeah, well, sure. I'm Pepin. I'm a young entrepreneur. I was born and raised in Montreal. Had my first basically position in the business world when I was 16 years old. Booked a pretty really nice book of contacts, and was able to basically found my first company when I was 17. It was a algorithmic that we were able to help small medium business basically to get engaged with the right marketing provider. Did super well on that. Was able to sell my share of that project when I was 18 years old, and then took some of my money to bless my family and take the rest of it to really reinvest into a marketing agency, which is what I'm currently doing. So really perhaps managing a marketing agency really with the premise of incorporating big data and neuroscience to increase engagement and conversion. And now having a worldwide team, worldwide perhaps clientele. On top of all of that, we run a show called the Meaningful Podcast, which has been an absolute pleasure to run. I really love the concept of podcasting, and yeah, I have a wonderful fiance. Love to read, and that's pretty much me.
Great. Well, thank you. Yeah. You've done a lot. How old are you now, Sam?
20.
20. Okay. Yeah. I would say you've done a lot.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So, I met you when it was International Men's Day, and you were one of
yeah.
the guests there, and that was a powerful event. So, yeah, and I'm glad that you are so dedicated to helping young men and their struggles, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so and what did you say you are now?
20.
No, no, where?
Oh, I'm in El Salvador. This is my second home.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, I knew that. I wasn't sure. I knew that you were all over the globe. So anyway, all right.
I like to travel.
Well,
Yes, I like to travel.
all right. So, do you have? How long do you have?
Oh, I have a little bit of time. There's no time rush.
Okay. All right. So let's just go. Let me ask you some questions here. Let's get down to business. What would you say is like the biggest armor, the when we're talking about armor, the mask of the men that have to wear to that you see young men wearing today to protect themselves? I mean, what is it? Um, what is that? Maybe that's not. I mean, I'm not even question. The question isn't phrased right, but
No, I understand. Totally understand. I think that there's a lot of signaling in this world Mariquita. And I think that signaling perhaps sort of plays a lot of men to sort of try to imitate and try to basically through this very false, authentic process, emulate perhaps what they believe, or I suppose what they were led to believe success is. And when there's a gap, when there's a discrepancy perhaps within your understanding and your doing, it's a very dangerous place to be. And so I think the masks come mostly from the signaling and perhaps the misunderstanding that what really is a man perhaps is not what is mostly portrayed in worldwide media. Certainly not on social media. Most of it is actually much more infantine and gimmicky perhaps than what it is to actually be a man. So I suppose that's again false authenticity to try to be something that you think the world expects from you, yet you're not there yet. I believe causes a lot of that stress, and therefore people, as Frank Kafka discussed at great length, incredible philosopher, people are putting on masks. People are not really who they seem they are, which is in some ways unfortunate, but in other ways you need to understand that game and guard yourself from those in which you're trying to, I suppose, with bad intentions, profit from you.
Yeah. And why is it so difficult for young men to show who they really are? I mean, what's the pressure?
I think when they do, they're shut down. Very often, when men perhaps show emotions or things are not going well, we're told to we're told to man up. We're told to find a solutions at all price, and that causes huge amount of stress. And we see that across data. I'm from Canada originally, and it's from the outside. It's a very socialistic and very happy country, and it certainly is. And we don't have. I'm very grateful to have been born in Canada. But if you go under that layer, there's very significant perhaps portion of the populations that live in what I call the silent self, live basically a life in which is not really theirs, and live a life perhaps of projection instead of true living and accomplishment. So I think it's mostly because young men believe that what they had to do are I suppose beyond their emotional needs.
And what does it feel like to shut down? I mean, what does that look? I mean, tell me more about that, what it's like.
I think shutting down as a man, you'll see them being less joyful. I think that's the first sign. You'll see them perhaps don't have the same smile, don't have the same glow in their eyes, don't have the same perhaps grace. And I think a lot of time again we sort of use those as signals that, oh wow, this person is ungrateful or is this and that. But most of the time it's actually because they're again they're living an untruthful life. They're living an untruthful life to themselves, most importantly. And so within the scope of that, I think that the early sign of shutting down is again personality changes, energy changes. You get to the stage where you don't want to do anything. Perhaps you're just in a place where you rather do nothing than to try something else and maybe go even deeper to the rabbit hole. So inaction paralysis, however you want to call that, I think is a huge chunk of this. That's what I've been seeing with a lot of young men is this huge pressure to be something that I'm sure they can become. You can become all of what you think. There's nothing is impossible. If you can dream it, you can do it. And I and many other are a very good example of that. That being said, things take time. Things, they do take time. They take more time than you think, much more time than you think. And sometimes you have this pressure of, well, this guy did it in 7 months and this guy became a millionaire in 16 months. Well, one, that may not be true. But two, if it is, well, such thing as his path. And maybe your path will take 10 years to achieve your objective. But if your objective are worthy of being perhaps achieved, the timeline assigned to it is far less important than the actual realization of it.
Very true. Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy, they say. I don't remember who
It
says
is.
it, but yeah. Yeah. And now, didn't you? I mean, your childhood, you did you have a supportive father? I felt like you did, or you do.
My parents got disengaged when I was 8 years old, but I had a father figure in my life. Certainly, I didn't see him much. We had a few kerfuffle here and there, but a lovely man. I wouldn't change my father for anyone else, and so I have a lot of love for him, and I think it's reciprocal. But I must say that I was mostly raised by my mother, certainly.
Okay. All right. And so, how, I mean, that must have been very hard for her mother. I mean, your mother, how was it discussed about like the absence or what you were going through? Is that something that was talked about?
No, I wouldn't say it was talked about at great length. I think that I was raised with a very feminine mother and a very masculine father. So I was raised with an energy balance that was actually quite decent, actually very decent. And I wouldn't say that. I would say that we are people perhaps that try to find the best in all things. I think that's how I see the world. Period. And therefore, I really rarely, if ever, think of the world in a lacking perspective. I think that I'm exceptionally grateful for all I have, and I think my family and my mother certainly raised me to be that way. So the concept of lacking perhaps is one that I'm not really familiar with, because not because we had a lot, but we certainly had enough to not lack anything. And so in that sense, I believe there's great virtue in, Marcus Aurelius says that the cheaper your luxuries, the richer you'll be. And I think that we live in a world where unfortunately those luxuries and what we consider needs are actually wants and not needed at all. And therefore racking up these sort of lists of, well, I'll be happy if perhaps, or I'll be courageous, well, I'll be whatever objective you want once I achieve this, and that. But I don't believe in such thing. I think that happiness is a choice, regardless of your external situation. So my mother, we didn't talk about that at great length. We talked about how much fun we have and how much love we had, and how great the world is and the opportunity that there is in the world. But very little negative talk from my childhood. That's for sure.
Well, good. Yeah, yeah. I didn't mean negative. I just meant like talking about what happened in the family. But it sounds like, yeah, that you did come from a very encouraging home. That, I mean, a good foundation, which is wonderful. So, yeah. And and did you have other siblings?
I do. I have a younger sister by 16 months.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. So now you are a powerhouse, and so yeah, that's amazing. So, um, did you, when you were a young man, did you struggle to have connections with other young men? I mean, to have those close connections, and
I still do, actually. I still do, absolutely. I think that there's let me say it this way. I always aimed to be the best. To me, in everything that I do, either I do it fully or I don't do it at all. Now, do I encourage others to have the same mindset? No, actually. That is my path, might not be yours. That being said, again, to me, I live life to be the greatest that I can, therefore to serve the world at the highest level. So, with that mindset, you'll unfortunately lose a lot of relationships, perhaps that doesn't serve that mission of yours of becoming the ultimate self. Now, again, is that the right choice, the wrong choice? Only God knows. There's something to be said about the difference of objective that I had with my peers. Very, very different objective, very different ways of understanding the world, of I suppose what how much of my life is focused on that objective of the greater self. I'd say the vast majority of it is. So I have a wonderful fiance. I have lovely parents. I have 2 to 3 friends that I really love and adore. But the external world, perhaps, and anything that doesn't serve my missions, I'm not greatly concerned about it outside of what I can do to help others if they need to. So the concept of friendship is one that has not been greatly explored on my side, if I'm truly honest. Did I have a friend in the past? Sure, acquaintance, a lot of acquaintances, but I can count the number of friends that I had in my whole life on a single hand, actually. So, from that perspective, I would consider myself a certainly an introvert, which might surprise a few people, but I certainly am, and I like to spend most of my time alone with God or with my loved ones, and most of it is based on the premise of how great can I become so the world can become greater through me, and vice versa. So it's always a matter of serving, always a matter. It's actually not an egotistical quest. It's actually a quest in which encompasses the world, but it encompasses the world after self-sufficiency, which I believe that young people in general, men and women, might have that first goal, might be having fun, might be to discover themselves, might be there's nothing wrong with it at all. But that was certainly not my path. At a very young age, I had many responsibilities, and I took them to heart. And I want to again succeed in all I do. And so, therefore, I would say to answer your questions, I'm not a man of a vast circle. I never been, and perhaps we'll see if that will change. But I had one best friend pretty much my whole life, and that would be it.
All right. Well, you have a lot of energy. I feel the energy coming from you, Sam. So, yeah, that's amazing that you didn't get sidetracked like most the young people. That you seems like you really knew what you wanted, and you said, "This is what I want to do with my life, and I'm going to get on it. And it's not going to be about my ego. It's going to be about how I can serve others."
Yeah. Well, let me say this like let me say it like this. If you're not sure of what to pursue, you should pursue yourself. You should pursue your greater self, I suppose. Yourself in which is more capable, yourself in which is more righteous, is more generous, is more loving. If you don't know what to pursue, pursue yourself. And I think we have this false concept that is actually coming from school, that at a very young age you should know what you want to do and which path of study you want to have. Such thing is completely irrelevant, never been this irrelevant than as this precise moment. So I want to be very clear. I was exceptionally good at school. I was able to even graduate with many years in advance, but I'm not a supporter nor a fan of how we teach our kids in the West at all, actually. I think that a lot of the pressure come from there, and that's what they want to do, which is to educate you to be, well, I suppose, a convenient and a functioning citizen. I think they were doing a lot of the opposites, unfortunately. Now, within the concept of that, again, what does it mean to pursue yourself? Well, the truth is, there's three main questions that you'll need to ask in your life: who you spend it with, which is by far the most important; what you do, where you do it. So, physically speaking, where are you in the world? What do you do? And then who you do it with, which is by far the most important thing there is, and will by far be the best indicator of if you will be happy or not. So that's another thing also. Less materialistic, more spiritual is something that will be of great perhaps advice and virtue and wisdom to everybody. Now, within the scope of that, typically what we do at first is a little bit blurry. We know what we want, perhaps. Most of the time, we don't know what we don't want, which you acquire with wisdom and experience, which is also very important. But you certainly know what you want, or at least if you don't know yet, you should stop everything you're doing, sit down with yourself. I prefer even to look at me in the mirror. I think it's even faster to get this sense of self that way, and because you introduce your sights inside the conversation, and you should stop everything, absolutely everything. Weekend is upon us, perhaps. Great time to do that for most people. And ask yourself, what do I want out of this life? Now, for me, I knew it very, very early. My mother had some personal struggle, which I had to, again, be of great help with, which is why I started in business this young. And most importantly, it was to be my greater self. Now, my greater self is one in which perhaps is of best use and best help for others. Serving the world should be the only mission of anyone's life. It's actually the only thing that is worth pursuing. It's light and love, and God, perhaps. So the concept of that is exceptionally important. Now, what I would be less concerned with is everything in which you don't have control over. If you don't have control over something and you worry about it, 99% of the time it will make you less productive and actually less entitled to help others, not more. I know that we believe the opposite nowadays with how relevant media is, and it's news and breaking news, this and this and this and that. Relax. All right. Until your world is not formed in a way that it is stable, helping others will actually probably be to the detriment of both of you. So try to achieve self-sufficiency. Now, what is self-sufficiency? Self-sufficiency is that you're able to be a responsible adult on a money perspective, on a health perspective, on the way you serve others, on your manners, so on and so forth. So again, pursue yourself, and you'll see that clarity We often think that clarity comes from sitting down and planning everything to the smallest details. It's very rarely that way. Clarity
Wait,
actually,
say that again. What did you say?
yeah. We usually think that clarity is something in which perhaps we acquire by heavy planning, by trying to
Oh,
plan every single details. But the truth is, it's very rarely that way. Most of the time, you have a broad vision, sort of a broad brush. Think about a Monet painting, right? A Claude Monet painting. Before it looks absolutely incredible because of the game of perspective, looks like nothing. Looks like lines on a canvas. So that's basically the same thing for everything. When you have that global plan, basically, I would say personally, which might be the opposite of the advice of some people that share with you, and may God let you decide which one you prefer. But to me, the goal is never to go down to the absolute details and understand, all right, this is what the plan looks like, or one don't be changing that plan at all. No, life doesn't really happen that way. There's all sorts of things that can happen before your goal and you achieving it. So instead of doing that, I want you to sit down with yourself, ask yourself, what is important for me, perhaps? What do I want out of life? Do I want to have a family? I hope so. I want to have a family. I want to be loved and I suppose love and to be loved. I want to do something that inspire me. That's fantastic. But I want you to go from that perspective to right away reverse engineer to what can you do today perhaps to get closer to those goals. And what you can do today is not writing a book. All right, that's not a day task. That's a multiple month, maybe even a year task. So I don't want you to think again in this too far ahead, because if you're not far ahead enough to even perceive where you're going, it will probably be more counterproductive. What I want you to do is, again, are you as disciplined as you can be? Are you as patient as you can be? Are you as loving as you can be? If the answer is no to these questions, there's very simple things to do every single day, such as, for example, in the morning I do my bed. That's a great discipline sign. And every single day I find an hour to go to the gym or to do some physical activities. Those, you start to pile evidence of competence. And when you pile evidence of competence, you therefore become more confident, which is the only cheat code in this world. Don't believe anything else you see anywhere else. The
the
most
only what?
important thing there is for you to have the only thing that the only I suppose what I call cheat codes, but the only perhaps thing that is the most relevant to you accomplishing your objective is self belief, self competence, agency, perhaps let's put it that way. And so I want to do as much of that as possible. As a young man, my goal is again to get outside of this self ego debt as much as possible. I'm a useless servant. Now through the vessel that I was able to acquire, divine vessel, then I'm able to perhaps utilize some of those insights to then understand who I need to become, perhaps, and who I want to become to be able to accomplish on those objectives. So I would say understand your wants. Once you have your wants, rewind basically those wants into who you need to become in order to be able to achieve such things. You need to remember that you achieve things, you become who you need to become to achieve things before you achieve them. Not because of your achievement that you became who you became. You became who you needed to become for that achievement, and therefore you achieve it. Very important. That's Jim Rohn. If you want more than what you have, you need to become more than who you are. Fundamental, absolutely fundamental. And that means that whatever the objective you have, it may be too much for your current self. That's great. Work on your current self to become the self that needs to happen, perhaps, for those things to be acquired. And I believe you will live a life of way less anxiety and way more prosperity.
Yeah, and well, I agree that you can't map when you map everything out to every detail, life it doesn't work that way. Life is organic. There's
Yeah.
no mapping everything out, and you're just setting yourself up for failure. And you can't control everything. I mean,
Mhm.
because there's a greater force in this world, and it can't be controlled. No matter how much you try to control everything, it's falling. It's going to fall apart. So yeah, and you're only boxing yourself in. That's the like the man box, the armor. I'm going to control everything so I don't get hurt. But all you're doing is you're being controlled by the outside. So
Yes.
so what about spirituality? You talk
Yes.
about that. So what do you do? What is your spiritual outlets?
Yeah, well, the creator, perhaps the creator of heaven and earth. I'm a deep believer in God. Personally, I am a believer in Jesus or Yeshua. So I have a relationship with him. So personally, I'm outside of the institutional understanding of religion. I think that anything man-made is being it's prone to be corrupted, and I think it's been corrupted. That is again my opinion. So I stay very far from man-made institutions. But I do pray a lot. I fast, and I always look at life as serving Him. All that what I do, like I said, I am a useless servant. I am not that smart, not that intelligent, not that anything actually. I am a mortal like everybody else. But through the divine vehicle that was gifted to me, which I'm very grateful for. The thing that I'm most grateful for, because nothing else really matters if you don't have that, which is breath, life, love, and God. The when you're thinking about it this way, I have again a personal relationship with Him. So I pray a lot. I read the scriptures, and I always ask myself, even if God don't need it, doesn't need me, whatever. What I don't actually, like I said, I'm irrelevant. If He would have, who does He need me to become? What? How can I be useful to God? I'm much more concerned by what I can do for Him than what He can do for me. Even though what I can do for Him is significantly irrelevant compared to what He can do for me. But that mindset helped me tremendously to live for something greater than self and to please God and not man is, in my opinion, the only way that you'll be able to achieve true peace. True peace and love comes from the certainty in which really what you're doing doesn't really matter, but you should not be sad about that. You should be actually very grateful about that, because the truth is, your life is what you make it. It is. There's people in which gets luckier than others. Life is not just. The only thing that is just is you being able to acquire eternal life, depending on your actions and belief. But that being said, your time on this earth might just be consequential just because of your presence. What if nothing else really mattered than just you being here? Now, I understand that we have those quests of doing things, and I have those quests all the time, by the way. So I'm the first victim of it. Very far from my intention of letting you think that I'm great with just thinking that being here is enough. No, I want to accomplish great things, but I always come back to why do they matter, and how can we make the world a better place? What are you doing today, perhaps that 100 years, 200 years from now, basically we will be able to see the impact of. That's that's how I live my life. I think that the very successful people that I met, Mariquita, that's how you pronounce your name, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, they always talk in decades, in centuries, in
Mm.
legacy. I think
Legacy.
we've been condensing ourselves because of the industrial revolution. We won't have time to talk about that today, but the we've been sort of reducing human beings to doers, to doing all the time. But actually, what we're greatest at is thinking. It's creativity. We're the only being actually with the gift of creativity. Period. No other being is creative. Now they can seem creative, like for example, a beaver creating his house, but it's actually out of survival that he's able to create his house, not as pure creativity. No other beings will just sit in front of a canvas and paint something for the joy of it, except human beings, because again, you're a divine creation of the Creator. Now, when you look at it this way, then your life become much more in. Picasso said this, Mariquita, I think is phenomenal. He says, the goal of life is to find your gift. The purpose of it is to give it away. And that's that is exactly what my quest, and I hope your quest will be, because it can't be better said than that. That's what life is. Is you all everybody here listening to this afterwards, you all have gifts. Some of our gifts are more obvious than others. Some are 6'8", they're LeBron James, and it's very obvious to see that this gift is athleticism. But some people it's charisma. Some people it's sympathy. Some people it's writing. Whatever that gift is, again, coming back to pursuing yourself, find what you're great at. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of ikigai, Marikika.
Yes, I am.
So Ikigai is a fantastic guide. I would say for anyone that didn't see Ikigai, please do. Ikigai is a phenomenal guide, and it's really a pleasure to fall in love with yourself, because when you do, you also find in love with the world, and such thing is exceptionally important.
Yeah, I mean, what are you getting up for every morning, right? What's the drive? You're not just getting up to be on autopilot. Unfortunately, a lot of us are getting up to be on autopilot and just to make money, but with no purpose in life. And that's why they feel, this flat death and the soul death. If you're just living to get to the point where, like, okay, now I can retire. What have I done? And we're not talking about legacy, but oh well, I won this bowling award, which is fine. But I mean, I'm talking about something from the soul, right? It's nice to win awards. I don't want to put anyone down. That's not what I'm saying. But what is your legacy? What footprint have you left on this earth? Right? When people are gone, they will say, this is what the contribution was.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So, yeah. And I don't know how that takes waking up.
Sure.
So, yeah. And waking up doesn't always, I mean, many times people don't wake up unless they're jolted into being awake. So, yeah. I mean, the universe will jolt you into it. Every day it's trying to wake you up, right? I mean, God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to say, is sending you, here's a sign to wake up. Here's a sign to wake up. Here's a sign to wake up. But do we hear the signs? No. A lot of times we don't. We just, we try to shut those signs out. Like we can drink them away, we can party them away, we can do whatever to put, to shut down what the universe is showing our greater path is, and our divine role is. And we don't want to hear it because that takes work. I mean, it takes self-awareness. You have to be brave and courageous to see how you're playing small.
Goethe, which is one of my favorite philosophers of all time. I might say his name terribly, by the way, so I apologize to the German listening to this. But he says, it's incredible to see that when you commit to something, the whole world conspire for you to have it, for you to achieve it. And yeah, that's exactly what I believe too. I believe that when you have absolute conviction that what you're doing is worthy of doing, there's no stopping you. There's simply no stopping you. And again, it will take more time and more resources and more failure and more of what you don't want before you get to what you want. That's also something else that I want to tell the young men, mainly, but everybody, but mainly the young men, perhaps as the theme of this episode. I want you to understand, very important, that on the path to what you want, all right? I used to think when I was younger there was two paths: the path of failure, the path of success. No, it's the same path. The same path has many failures before you get to success, my friends. And I want you to think as failures as absolute wins. It will not feel like this at first, but I want you to think of life this way. How fast would you fail if you knew that after 10 failures, you would have your greatest accomplishment perhaps being delivered to you? You would fail as fast as possible. And that's exactly what you should do. I'm 20 years old. If you're at 16 to 25, and even up to 30 if you don't have children yet. If you have children, we're talking about a whole nother situation. But if you don't have children yet and you're in that age range, nothing matters most than to be curious and to learn from others' mistakes. All right. A lot of mistakes, you'll need to make them in order to learn. But there's many others that you don't need to make in order to learn. All right. Mark Twain says, an intelligent man learns from his mistake, but a wise one learns from others' mistake. That's what I want you to do. I want you to be in an observative mode much more often than in a doing mode. You will get to the doing, but before you understand what to do, perhaps observe. What is the tendency of the people that I admire, perhaps? And those people that I admire, perhaps, will be different than the people that you admire. So find those that you admire. Understand what do they do to be the people that you admire. Is it because they're disciplined? Is it because they're exceptionally lovely? Is it because they're very curious? Is it because they're intelligent? Whatever it is, that attraction is a very clear sign that you attach value to such thing. If not, you would not admire such person. And therefore, those are very good cues to understand, well, wow, all the people that I admire are intellectuals. Might be because I want to be an intellectual too. That's sometimes, but most of the time, a very good sign. If everybody here that you admire are athletes, guess what? You probably like to be an athlete too. So I want you to be observative, and I want to again understand that you will fail. I don't know if I'm the first one to tell you, but you will fail. And you will try things and it won't work. And you'll try again and it won't work. And you'll try it again, and you might get laughed at. And you might get people saying, well, why even do this in the first place? I mean, there was no chance of you succeeding. They're wrong. They're wrong. The reason why they're saying this is because they're projecting the fact that they wouldn't be able to do it on you. And therefore, I want you to completely erase those out of your mind. I want you to only take advice from people in which you would like your life to resemble. If the life of the person giving you criticism is not a life that you want to live, doesn't matter. Does not matter. You can learn from everybody, but be very careful who you take your advice from. You should take your advice from a very narrow amount of people, actually. The people that you want to have a life similar to theirs, always. So how big would you dream if you knew that you couldn't fail? Because all failing before death is psychological. All of it. It's psychological. You perceive failure because you think it was not what you wanted, and therefore the opposite of winning is losing. But that's perspective based. Maybe that loss perhaps came to you the wisdom or the patience or whatever it is to break your ego that was necessary for then your success to come in. Whatever that is, all that is perspective based. And you have the gift of time. And time is, knock on wood, that I have sometimes, and people my age have as much time as perhaps they wish to have, because time is an incredible thing. Who you are now, especially as a man, again, I've never talked for a woman, as it's a completely different conversation. But for a young man, which I am one, you're actually at your weakest state right now. You might not think so, but you are. A man with experience, with failures, with hard labors that put him in a place where he needed to think, he needed to accomplish something because he didn't have any other choice to. That's what makes you a man. You acquire your masculinity by the concept of, again, trying to achieve things in which are greater than your present self. So therefore, the pressure, of doing such thing actually form you as a man. So I want you to understand that the reason why you're at your weakest, you're probably at your strongest-ish from a physical perspective, but from a pure understanding of the world, you're at your weakest by far. And therefore, your value will rise as you're trying things, as you're developing your network, as you're more astute when it comes down to observing your environments. So I want you to understand that all of what you dream are possible. And if you put your mind to it, I have no doubt that you will succeed in it. Zero doubts. I myself was certainly an underdog, and yet look at us now. There's but again, there was a lot of sleepless night. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of, and you don't need all of that. All right. Most of your bad emotion comes from unfulfilled expectations. So I want you, especially when you're starting something, that the only expectation you have is for you to become closer to your greatest version. That is all that matters. At first, it's all that matters. Until you have people that you're responsible for, which is why I mentioned children's being another category, that's all that matters. Becoming closer to your greater self is the only thing that matters. Now, as you're becoming closer to your greater self, you'll see that opportunities will not only come to you, but if you're intelligent, if you're wise, you will give it back to as many people as possible. And that would be your true wealth. Your true wealth is people in which you're able to impact positively by your perhaps work and ambitions and actions and thoughts. That's what's the amazing thing. So yeah, to answer your question more directly, I believe we want our young men to take risk, to calculate the risk. Obviously, don't be dumb. And there's good risk and bad risk. Obviously, bad risk being drinking way too much, for example. That's probably not a good thing. But there's good risk. There's risk in which makes you uncomfortable, and which makes you, I could just stay here and I will be much more. Yeah, sure. But most likely than not, what you want is on the other side of what you're afraid of. So, with what you can control, do it with all your heart. Do it like it's the last thing you're gonna do before dying. And if you tackle life that way, I think life will open up to become what you want it to become, and what you need it to become. Most importantly, um, yeah,
Well, one thing that you said that's so, I mean, many things you said are very important, but this idea of failure, I mean, because I wish I had been told as a child, you're going to fail and that's great. Because we're all, I mean, we always see failure as negative, but once we see that's a normal part of life, and that, like you said, it's on the path to success also, that,
yes,
yeah, I mean, and the whole thing is to fail quickly and get up and to be resilient because you don't want to fail and then just give up.
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and so who taught you all this? I mean, who taught you this? I mean, did you now you said your mother was a very big force in your life.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
I, yeah, are you like your mother?
no, no. Um, no, my mother is a very feminine woman, and I'm a decently masculine man. I would say that I think life taught me all of that. It will be very difficult. I can give you some of the people that I really personally admire. You should not idolize anyone, but admiring people is not a problem. Um, Marcus Aurelius. Read as much as Marcus Aurelius stuff as much as possible. Read it once, read it twice, read it 50 times. Absolutely phenomenal. So I'm a big fan of Marcus Aurelius. Seneca, big fan of Seneca. If you're getting into philosophy, please start with Seneca. In my opinion, the most important philosopher of all time, and that might be surprising a few people. And so Seneca, Letters from a Stoic, in my opinion, is one of the greatest book of all time. Never, ever, never I've finished a book and I've been this inspired by it, except the Bible. I would say find your. To me, I'm a Christian, so my goal is never to push my philosophies or my ideology on anyone. Such thing is not my job. We have a great spiritual father to do such thing. But I would say that find a righteous guide. Find a righteous guide. Find something to live for that is bigger than self. Because if you don't find it, one most likely not you're not the best guy. I don't want to insult anyone, but I'm not the best guy either. Or again, we're not. Nobody's really impressive. Human beings are perhaps much more impressive because of our the collaborative aspect of the species. But if we take every single human beings as they are, perhaps individually speaking, we're not that impressive. And therefore, have a guide that is bigger than yourself. Have somebody perhaps that can mentor you. That's another thing that I did very well. I had my first mentor when I was 16. I had a second mentor when I was 17, and now I have four mentors. The You must understand that again, there is things that you don't understand, and that there's things in which you will need to understand to achieve your goals. Now you have two paths. You have the path of making all the mistakes yourself because you're too prideful to seek help, or you have the path of seeking help from people in which already achieve what you want. Then you might say, "Well, Sam, why would they give their time with that? Why? What do I have to give them? You know what you have to give them? You have to give them the naivety. You have to give them the sheer love for helping others and having them seeing in you what they saw in themselves when they were your age. So my mentors, my first one, I was 16, he was 46. Then I was 17, he was 73. And then now my mentors, there are two others, are 64 and 66 and 62. Now I'm 20 years old. They have more money than I have. They have a stable relationship, many kids. They have many other things to do. But yet, we have a very loving relationship because what I always tell them, by the way, and you can steal this line if you like. Maybe I never heard it, so I will claim it as mine. But if somebody else finds somebody else that said it before me, then it's fine. I give it back. But what I always tell those people is give me the present and I will give you the future. You see, when you're getting older, what you don't have of is time. You have a lot of other things. Perhaps if you live your life well, you might have wisdom, you might have resources. Hopefully, you have a great love relationship. Now, when you're young, you have typically none of those things, but you have a lot of time. So the only really valuable commodity you have from a purely economical perspective is your time, because your understanding of life, your labor, your skill set is quite small, which is totally fine. You're 16 to 25, you're growing. So I want you again to focus more on what can I do for others? But in order for me to serve others, I need to serve myself first. If I'm a mess, then how can I be able to utilize myself as a guide for others? So find that guide. For me, like I said, it's Jesus Christ. I'm very upfront with it. Your guide might be a different person. It's totally fine. But find that guide, and not just a guy. I don't want to again shame anyone, but not again a guy that you find on Instagram flashing with a Lamborghini. That's not a guy. That's it can be perhaps somebody that you take a business advice from. That's fine. But I'm talking about a guide for life. I'm talking about somebody that lived their life, that we know for a fact lived their life in a way that was amazing. Now, did they make mistake? Not my guide, but any other beings, in my opinion, did. And therefore, if it's another guide, like I said, if you really admire Marcus Aurelius, did Marcus Aurelius did mistake? Yes, plenty of them actually. But you know what? For an emperor, for a Roman emperor, to live the life that he lived is absolutely incredible. So again, have people in which are farther than where you are in the journey of life. Find guides in which are righteous and that you can perhaps admire and imitate until you become more like them. And hopefully that they are God-like, and therefore you become God-like yourself. Very important. But within the scope of that, I would say Marcus Aurelius, I would say Seneca, I would say Albert Einstein had a huge impact on me. And I would say my personal mentors are who shaped me, alongside with a lot of failure, lots of failure. I felt much more time than I succeeded, but yet people only remember the time I succeeded, because that's how life works. If you take a look at Michael Jordan, for example, Michael Jordan missed more shot than he made by quite a large margin, actually. But do you remember the shot that he missed? No. You remember that he's 6 for 6 in the finals. You remember that he's one of the top scorer of all time. You don't remember the night that he had a 0 for 12 from the field. No, because you know what? It's irrelevant. Because that night was a way for him to get closer to his greater self, and therefore was still a productive night. Not on the game sheet, but on his life sheet. And those would be Lionel Messi also. Lionel Messi is another huge impact on my life. And those are main ones.
All right. Well, this is really rich information. So back to the young men. How do young men handle feeling this loneliness, or being understood and misunderstood? Because like when you are a young man, shutting down your feelings and you're not acknowledging yourself, and this goes on to older men too, not just
Right.
young men. But how do they? I mean, so how do they handle that? The loneliness.
Oh, I think all men will have a loneliness chapter in his life. I would again. There's a difference between being alone and lonely. Um, you can feel lonely in the middle of a crowd.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that's the first thing. So there's a perspective to it. To me, loneliness comes from the fact that you lack self love, because the only person you need to make yourself happy should be yourself always. And God, that's a non variable. There's always there, perhaps regardless of if you and I are there. So within that, embrace it. Embrace those times being alone, and embrace the time when you might feel like an underdog, or you might have made a mistake. Repent. That's okay. We all make mistakes. Repent, and once you repented, obviously try to be better. Repenting is not enough. I want this to be clear. I think that's another thing that people misunderstand. To say you're sorry and to not change your behaviors, it's not enough. You need to be sorry and change your behaviors. But if you do, life life is again the quest of the divine, therefore the quest of self. And within that, the scope of that, the most amazing thing amazing thing that will occur when you're alone. Again, not when you're lonely. If you're lonely, you lack self-love, so build self-love. Once you build self-love, then you'll feel that you're alone, which is totally fine. Being alone is actually a fantastic thing. I would say alone time, reading a good book, or planning your life, or very few things in the world are better than that. Very few things are that. So I would say embrace the concept of, again, spending time with yourself, specifically as a young man. Now, you might think that having a fruitful social life is very important. Having a lot of ladies is very important. I used to think that myself, so I, take the blame fully. And I want you to understand that all of that, all of those desires, all of those needs, perhaps that you think they're needs, are probably not needs actually. So I would say that the most important thing there is as you love something greater than yourself, you'll then acquire self love. And through self love, you will acquire the love of others. And through loving others, you will love the world. And but let's start with yourself though. So spend your time alone to have a greater love for yourself is always what I suggest.
Yeah, very, very, very true. It starts with yourself. Yes. And so, how did your view of relationships change? Because you were saying, well, maybe most young men want to have a lot of beautiful women, right?
Yeah,
Um, yes. And so now you have a fiance. What's the difference? I mean, is there a difference now?
there is absolutely.
Yeah.
There's white love and there's white love and there's deep love. And
Wait, what was the first one?
there's wide
Oh,
love,
why?
there's
Okay.
deep love, and I chose the latter. I used to have very wide love, and I don't recommend it. Well, actually, I won't say I don't recommend it. I would say that always come back to righteousness. What does the people you admire, perhaps, or at least I hope that you admire these type of people, what do they have in common? They are very lovely and they're very loving. So meaning that they give a lot of love and they receive a lot of love. Now those people are the happiest by far. The reason why they're the happiest is because again, who you spend your life with is by far the best indicator of how happy you will be. And therefore, now I'm actually it's not even loving somebody else. We are one. My fiance and I are one. And therefore, we're not in a relationship. We're together. We
What does
are
that
we
mean? What is deep love?
Deep love is love in which you're not seeking anything outside of it. Deep love is able to fulfill all of your desires. If and therefore, again, coming back to that quote from Marcus Aurelius, you want to understand, very important, that most of your desires are actually inherited, actually not yours. What you want out of life typically is much narrower than you might think. Much, much narrower. To me, when I met my fiance, which was not my fiance at the time, it took me probably 90 minutes to know that that was the love of my life. So what I would tell you is you will know. It seemed difficult to understand, but you will. At some point, you will come across somebody, and you look at your life, and you look at the life with her, and you see how obvious it is that a life with her or him, obviously, um, is far superior. So again, deep love is love in which doesn't have any external desires. That's what deep love is. I would say a lot of people that are in relationships don't love deeply, which is a huge problem in this society. But that would be the biggest difference that I made in my life was to go from wide love to deep love.
No, I get it. I get it. There's a total difference. I mean, one is like deep love. I mean, I would define as a soul connection, and it's not made of outside superficial material things. And you do know it right away. And the other love is more of an outside thing. I mean, yeah, where you're trying to entertain yourselves on the outside instead of that inner connection.
Yeah, exactly. I do need to jump off, by the way. I don't know if you had
Okay.
anything
You
in
know,
mind.
no. I got to go too anyway because I actually have another live stream. So, no, this has been wonderful, and I really appreciate. I'm glad you were able to jump on, and we have a lot of nuggets of wisdom. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can find me. Just type in Sam Pepin, and you'll find me right there in the red background. Um, the CoreCentrica, CoreCentrica.com is my personal company. You can sell a podcast also through it. I think you'll really enjoy the podcast if you enjoy this type of conversation. And my email is sam@corecentrica.com if you want to reach out to me more directly. And the only thing that matters in this world is love and light. Love and light. Everything else is superficial. So may God be with you. And we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Sam. This has been wonderful. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and subscribe and check out Sam's links. And all right, well, I'll see you around on LinkedIn, Sam, and everyone
All right.
else.
God bless now.
Bye, y'all.